In this video, we're gonna give you the full story behind one of Marvel's most formidable mages, Jennifer Kale. Jennifer's early mystical days. Jennifer Kale grew up in Florida with her brother Andy, and although their mom and dad weren't there to raise the two, their grandfather Joshua more than did enough to keep the siblings on the straight and narrow. Well, as straight and narrow as one can be within the Marvel universe. The thing is, Jennifer is a bit of a willful little girl. She had an interest in the mystical arts from a very early age, and with no one to properly serve as her mentor, the fledgling mage decided to study magic on her own. Her very first dalliance with the mystical arts came with Jennifer decided to secretly take a book from her grandpa Joshua's arcane library. And this wasn't Merriam-Webster's dictionary either, it was a book containing arcane knowledge that Jennifer proceeded to dissect. In fact, she even roped her brother Andy to serve as her very own assistant during this time. Eventually, Jen and Andy found a way to perform a summoning ritual from the studies they undertook. So the young Kale siblings gathered what was necessary to perform it and headed to the Everglades to try their hand at the spell. Unknown to the two, Man-Thing, the guardian of Marvel's Nexus of Realities, had been keeping an eye on them the whole time. By the time they finished the ritual, Jennifer thought the whole thing was a dud, but little did she and Andy know that they had indeed summoned an extra-dimensional creature from the invocation that they did, a creature called the Nether Spawn. Thinking she was a failure as a mage, Jennifer decided to cool her head with Andy at the movies. While enjoying the creature feature on the big screen, however, the two were attacked by the very creature they inadvertently summoned from the ritual. Thankfully, Man-Thing was there to defeat the Nether Spawn by burning it to a lump of dust. The Nether Spawn magically resurrected though, and it took the combined efforts of Man-Thing, Jen, and Andy to finally put a stop to the rampaging demon. Not long after that, we find out that Grandpa Joshua wasn't just an ordinary old man. He was in fact the leader of an occult group called the Cult of the Zaherd-Na. To further complicate things, the old man was heavily invested in the Man-Thing. One day when Joshua and his cult convened for one of their weirdo occult sessions, the old man was surprised to discover that one of their books, the Tomb of the Zaherd-Na, had gone missing. This happened to be the same book that Jen stole from the library. And when her grandpa found out about it, you'd think that the old occult nut would have been furious, but no, in fact Joshua was kind of pleased that Jen was able to summon a bona fide hell creature when she used it. In addition to that, Joshua discovered that summoning spells were not part of the Tome of the Zaherd-Na. So that only meant one thing, that Jen unknowingly took a different book from his library, and the Tome of the Zaherd-Na is still out there somewhere. Around the same time, Jackson, Jen's boyfriend at the time, got possessed by a demon from the same interdimensional portal that Jen and Andy opened when they went to the Everglades. From there, Jackson went on a tear and even managed to send Jen, Andy, and Joshua and Man-Thing to another dimension. This dimension happened to be the same place where the Nether Spawn came from. There, Jennifer and Man-Thing ended up battling the possessed Jackson until, during their tussle, the young mage unintentionally forged a deep spiritual bond with the guardian of the Nexus of Realities. As a result, Jennifer Kale became what was called the Creature of Destiny, an important cog in the Marvel Universe. Jennifer in the Multiverse of Madness. Sometime later, the whole world became engulfed in a wave of insanity and hate. Joshua immediately knew that some demonic force was behind this, and they were going to need the Tome of the Zaherd-Na in order to put things back to the way they were. So Grandpa Joshua reconvened the Cult of the Zaherd-Na to perform a ritual called the Mists of Malak, a spell intended to retrieve the magical tome. It worked, as the spell tagged both Jen and Man-Thing to basically serve as the cult's representatives in finding the important book. And believe us when we say that Jennifer and the guardian of the Nexus of Realities were in for a wild ride. First, the two were sent to a planet called Sant, where an evil mage named Akeem the Enchanter captured them. Akeem then had the two heroes join his gladiator pit for entertainment of Sant's emperor, where Man-Thing fought a bruiser named Mongu. Man-Thing absolutely spanked Mongu, and Jennifer took this opportunity to use Man-Thing's new fearsome reputation in order to intimidate the emperor of Sant and force him to free the two. Both Jen and Man-Thing were transported back to Earth after their whole adventure in Sant. But there was one problem: they still had to look for the tome of the Zaherd-Na. To make matters worse, the demonic influence over the entire world became more powerful upon their return, causing a large raging mob to gang up on Man-Thing. Jennifer thought that the deranged people of the world had successfully taken out her partner during this time, which drove her to depression. But there was no time to mourn. Shortly after that, the same wizard who captured her and Man-Thing on Sant, Dakeem, appeared in front of Jen and revealed that he was the last prodigy of Zaherd-Na. You see guys, Zaherd-Na used to be an actual historical person in the Marvel Universe who lived during the time of Atlantis' height of power. She was a super powerful sorceress who was executed for correctly predicting its downfall, with the tome of the Zaherd-Na being one of the few remnants of her existence in the present. Dakeem then told Jen that the whole deal where he enslaved and forced her and Man-Thing to become gladiators on Sant was just a test to see if they were worthy of possessing the legendary tome. And now that she had proven herself, Dakeem formally gifted her with Zaherd-Na's garb so that it would aid her in her quest to reclaim the legendary book. It would then be revealed that Man-Thing survived his whole ordeal with the crazed mob and would rejoin Jen and Dakeem in search for the tome. Eventually, Jen would find the object of their quest during one of their interdimensional adventures. However, just when she was about to take it, a dastardly villain named Yop teleported Jen and Man-Thing to a dimension called Sominus. There, Jen witnessed her entire family and their friends getting put through the ringer. Plus, there was a creature called the Guardian of the Dark Domain who had set its crosshairs on her. Man-Thing fought the Guardian of the Dark Domain while Jen successfully got hold of the Tome of Zaherd-Na during the whole encounter. In the end, she was able to use the book's power to send them all back home, and with the Tome of the Zaherd-Na back in its rightful place, everything went back to normal. Well, except for the fact that Jennifer and Man-Thing's spiritual bond got cut off in the process. Jennifer receives a formal education. Now, the whole world didn't exactly stop when Man-Thing apparently met his end during that whole problem with the demonic influence encompassing the world thing. During Man-Thing's absence, a shady land developer named F.A. Schist started to make moves to build an airport over Man-Thing's home, the swamps of Florida. The Kale family joined other parties who were opposed to his plan, but being the ruthless businessman that he was, Schist managed to fabricate violent riots all over the town in order to further his goals. During this whole period, Jennifer started to experience nightmares that seemed all too real, but that's because they were no ordinary dreams. We find out these so-called nightmares were actually really happening in a place called the land between night and day, a dimension where creatures from all dimensions were engaged in a bitter war with one another. It came to the point where one of the armies in the land between night and day, called the Karthat, attacked Man-Thing, so Jen naturally defended her old buddy, which then made her the new target of this extra-dimensional army. Not long after that, Korak, the Prince of Catharta, started actively trying to take out Jennifer. She would survive the attempt on her life when Korak retreated after seeing Jen's family, and soon enough, Dakeem would let Jen know that the reason creatures like Korak had been able to breach the boundaries between their realities was because of Schist ruining the Florida swamps. Because here's the thing, those swamps are connected to the Nexus of all realities, and Schist's whole airport plan caused an imbalance in the interdimensional walls protecting each reality from another. At this point, Dakeem decided to take Jennifer under his wing so that she could properly unlock her full potential as a powerful sorceress. Jennifer's formal training in the mystical arts promptly started then. Dakeem took her to a fortress simply named the Castle in the Sky and honed her magical abilities. However, trouble wasn't very far, as an evil collective called the Congress of Realities attacked the Castle in the Sky and captured Jen. The Congress then planned to take out Jen by firing squad, but in a curious twist of interdimensional fate, Daredevil and Black Widow appeared through a portal and saved her. This was no team up though, as the two street level heroes suddenly vanished right after doing the sorceress solid. Jennifer would then meet with Dakeem again. This time he was joined by the likes of Man-Thing, Howard the Duck, and Korak. Their reunion was not under the best of circumstances though, as Dakeem revealed that the reality was collapsing all around them. Their bid to save reality saw the group arriving at a version of paradise called Theria, a place that the Congress of Realities had just invaded. It would be revealed that the leader of the Congress was none other than the same Nether Spawn that Jen had summoned in her first foray into the mystical arts. Man-Thing would then battle the Nether Spawn again and manage to put an end to the carnage. In the end, we get this cute revelation that Theria's gods were a couple of cute dogs, and Jennifer would have a super trippy vision when she witnessed reality healing itself after the defeat of the Nether Spawn and his evil Congress. With reality sorted out for the time being, being, Dakeem and Jennifer went back to the castle in the sky to further her training. But the adventure doesn't end there, however, because then we find out that Korak, the Prince of Catharta, had been nearly taken out by some treacherous subjects, Mortak and Clonus. Dakeem then found out that the reason behind this treachery was because Mortak and Clonus were planning on averting Korak's true destiny to become a god. So Jennifer aided Korak and granted him a sweet new set of armor. Not long after that, the two would-be usurpers attacked our heroes in the middle of Florida, where Jen and Dakeem faced off against Clonus. Dakeem managed to trap their enemy in a magical prison made of crimson energy, but Clonus was able to take out Jennifer's mentor in the process. Before losing his life, however, Dakeem cast a spell that transferred all his knowledge and magic into Jen. In the meantime, Korak successfully took down Mortak. With the usurpers gone and another adventure in the books, Jennifer buried Dakeem's remains. But there is a silver lining here. With Dakeem's demise and his act of passing his magic and knowledge to her, Jennifer now became the last remaining disciple of Zahur-Na. Jennifer comes into her own. Although Dakeem had passed on, his spirit continued to linger in order to assist Jennifer in her adventures. At this point, Jen had proven herself to be a formidable sorceress in her own right, a fact that became all more apparent when she, Korak, Man-Thing, and Howard the Duck fought against a pretty cranky creature named Bazuk Joe. Bazuk Joe pretty much had his eyes set on destroying all of the humor in Marvel's reality, but through wit, determination, and some good old-fashioned magic, Jennifer managed to outsmart Bazuk Joe and save reality from being a humorless hellscape. Next, Jennifer faced the Lord of Fear named Despire, and he managed to trap her and Dakeem's spirit at first. But here's the thing that Despire didn't count on. Aside from powerful magic, Jen had some friends. By that we mean none other than our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man eventually joined the fray to put a stop to Despire's plans to bring darkness in the multiverse. Sometime later, Jennifer would get pulled into Doctor Strange and Baron Mordo's magical squabble. In a bid to defeat the Sorcerer Supreme, Mordo captured Jen and Kale and family along with Jackson, who is now her ex-lover at this point. You see, he intended to use them as human sacrifices with the help of Man-Thing's power. Man-Thing didn't switch sides though. Mordo took control of the Guardian of the Nexus of all realities with the intention of using his powers to summon fearsome demons called the Mabdara. But before Mordo could succeed, Jennifer was able to help Man-Thing free himself from the evil sorcerer's influence. This allowed Man-Thing to put everything back to normal and stop Mordo from succeeding. Jen's next adventure came when she helped a woman named Barbie Bannister look for her boyfriend John. What was supposed to be a simple search and rescue operation opened up a whole can of worms when John, who was revealed to be possessed, kidnapped Jennifer. We then find out that the Nether Spawn had returned again and was the one who took over John's body. Jennifer would find herself trapped in the Nether Spawn's dimension along with other magic users like Doctor Strange and Clea. But as superhero stories almost always go, Jen and her friends banded together to defeat the evil demon yet again. Sometime later, we discover that Jennifer had enrolled herself at Seaview College. She even found a new boyfriend under the name of Bernard Drabble. Everything seemed fine until Jen saw a vision of a man named Charles Blackwater getting taken out. This prophecy came to pass when she found out that Charles met his end at the hands of the cultist named Reeve Calder. From here, Jennifer started to take note of her visions more than before, so she decided to travel to New York after another mystical vision. Here, she would be united with a group of fellow magic users who also seemed to have these same vision dreams. One of the people was none other than Charles Blackwater, who had since been resurrected when his body was possessed by an entity called Omen. The spirit then told Jennifer and their companions that an entity known as Anantanu was threatening reality into becoming a pure dreamscape. To stop this, Jennifer and the other mystics formed a team called the Legion of Night. They'd go on a few adventures that culminated with Jennifer and her crew putting a stop to Antanu and saving all of existence. Jen would then enroll at UC Berkeley, but it would be short-lived. After a sorceress named Silver Dagger attempted to use a proxy to take her out, Jen decided to move back to New York and focus on studying the mystic arts. Eventually, Doctor Strange sought Jennifer's help in creating Dan Ketch, aka the Ghost Rider. Old Skullhead was experiencing a sort of magical disease, but Jen was able to cure it. However, this whole ordeal allowed a trio of demons called the Furies to escape hell and start hunting down Ghost Rider. Jennifer then teamed up with Danny and another spirit of vengeance, Johnny Blaze. In the end, she successfully sent the Furies back to hell. To make sure that they couldn't easily track down Danny in the future, Jen cast a spell that erased the memories of Danny's closest friends and family so that they couldn't be used against him. The Furies would find their way back to Jen's world just as she anticipated. To combat these foes, she drafted the help of the Asgardian Valkyrie and used her ancestral bond with Johnny to permanently put a stop to their enemies. More drama between Johnny Blaze and Jennifer would ensue, with the sorceress ending up agreeing to help him find his kids. But her next adventure happened when Jen flubbed a spell meant to send our old friend Howard the Duck back to his homeworld. Instead of doing so, she inadvertently summoned the tandem of Moon Boy and Devil Dinosaur, who then caused chaos all across the city. It would take Johnny's help to stop the boy and the red T-Rex, but Jen would find herself hospitalized during this whole debacle. Not long after that, Jen would keep true to her promise to Johnny and help him look for his kids. Their efforts came up short, and in a last-ditch attempt, Jen tried to summon a Wendigo to help look for Johnny's children. But this effort bore no fruit, and the sorceress and Spirit of Vengeance ended their partnership rather bitterly. Surprisingly enough, Jennifer Kale would branch out and acquaint herself with other non-mystical characters in the Marvel Universe. At some point after moving to San Francisco, Jen would team up with X-Force, where she helped the children of Adam defeat a demonic entity called Pandemonia. This particular chapter in Jen's life allowed her to meet Danny Moonstar, who had then gained the power to assess and channel energies that could warp reality. Jen initially thought that Danny's abilities came from a mystic source, but she ultimately found out that it was more cosmic in nature. Eventually, a supervillain named Arcadia DeVille tried to take Danny's abilities, but Jennifer and Man-Thing helped stop this shady evildoer. Return of the Tome. Years would pass and the Kale siblings would experience a huge tragedy when their grandfather Joshua eventually passed away. Not long after that, a dark lord named Marduk Kyrios tricked Jen's brother Andy into opening a cursed copy of the Tome of the Zahur-Na, which then released an interdimensional parasite called Helfer into the world. To make matters worse, Helfer took over Andy's body and turned Jen's brother into a monstrosity after being released from its prison. In fact, Helfer's presence on Earth caused such disruption in reality's mystical fabric that a lot of magic users were shocked with pain when Helfer emerged. Jennifer was no exception to this. Not long after that, Doctor Strange recruited her to stop Helfer, knowing that only someone from the Kale family could manage to reseal Helfer back into the tome. The transition from being a lone sorceress to joining a team of magic users wasn't easy for Jen though. For one, there was friction between her and the other members of Doctor Strange's newly assembled crew, namely Topaz and Wong. The addition of Satana to their ranks further increased the tension between its members too. In fact, the demoness Lilith took advantage of this situation by attacking Jennifer and her group during one of their training sessions. Jen managed to take out Lilith's summoned underling, but not before catching Satana with friendly fire. An argument sparked within the team after this battle, which caused Jen to pack up and leave. Here's the thing though, Doctor Strange hid the fact that Helfer was now residing in Andy's body. Not knowing this, Jen decided to stay with her brother after leaving her former teammates. In a desperate attempt to stop Andy and save Jen, Doctor Strange assembled his crew, and it all eventually led to a confrontation between them, Jen, and the Helfer-possessed Andy. This whole chapter in Jennifer Kale's life was exceedingly dark too, as she was forced to take out Andy in order to put a stop to the interdimensional creature possessing him. In the end, Jen was able to regain possession of the tome, but at a great cost. Strange found out about this and demanded Jen to give him the book, but she was having none of it. In fact, the rest of Strange's team, such as Topaz, decided to side themselves with Jen to prevent the Sorcerer Supreme from grabbing the book from her. The further adventures of Jennifer Kale. Jennifer would be part of Command, Florida's very own superhero team during Marvel's first Civil War. As part of Command, she'd helped fend off the Skrulls during the Secret Invasion storyline, but it wasn't until another interdimensional threat that Jen would take center stage. After sensing some mystical disruptions surrounding Man-Thing's swamp dwelling, Jen and the rest of Command found themselves battling against interdimensional zombies. It was an arduous confrontation that saw Jen's hands incapacitated when a zombified version of Wade Wilson, Deadpool, attacked her. However, Jennifer managed to triumph in the end, and in true Scream Queen fashion to boot, by using a fan boat to take out the undead Deadpool. However, the zombie wave continued to pour on. Eventually, this led Jennifer to have a panic attack, after which she was retrieved by the organization named Armor. Armor would eventually get attacked by the same zombies, but Jen would be able to escape from those undead monsters yet again. We then discover that Jennifer had been one of the top candidates to pick up the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme after Stephen Strange lost the title. She ultimately didn't get the job, but it was no skin off her teeth, because at this time, Jennifer was focused on paying back the undead creatures that attacked her and the rest of her team. To do this, Jen joined with Morbius in a team called the Midnight Suns. It's then revealed that the zombified Deadpool Deadpool had survived his confrontation with Jennifer earlier, he led the rest of the undead monsters in a confrontation against the Midnight Suns. Somewhere along the way, Morbius tried to come up with a serum that would defeat the zombies, but it only ended up strengthening them. This whole mess triggered Jennifer to have another panic attack. All of a sudden, the Dark Lord Dormammu appeared before her and attempted to strike a deal with her that she could use his power in return for her service. Jennifer's mental fortitude, along with little help from her old friend Man-Thing, allowed her to resist Dormammu's influence. However, when the undead army started to gradually overpower the rest of the Midnight Suns, Jen reconsidered and finally gave in to Dormammu's advances. Unsurprisingly, we find out that the Dark Lord had plans of his own. Instead of helping Jen defeat the zombie army, Dormammu used her in order to control the undead horde. It would take the aid of Damon Hellstorm to free Jennifer from Dormammu's control. Afterwards, she and Black Talon managed to put a permanent end to the undead threat by containing the zombie virus inside Simon Garth, the Marvel character known as the Zombie. The next time we see Jennifer would be during the Dark Reign event. During this era, her old confidant Man-Thing was kidnapped by Hammer, who then proceeded to use his powers and turn him into a sentient teleportation machine. Jennifer infiltrated Hammer and rescued Man-Thing, where they then headed into the Nexus of Realities to go on an alien fighting romp. After that, however, Man-Thing decided to go back to Hammer, after which Jen found out that he was not being held by the organization against his will. In truth, Man-Thing has elected to offer his powers and services to the organization. This led Jennifer to back off and just tell her old friend that she'll occasionally visit him. Jen would soon find herself entangled in an Avengers-centric problem when the villain Daniel Drum possessed the body of Victoria Hand and proceeded to attack her. Jen suddenly disappeared in the aftermath, with everyone believing that she had met her end. During her absence, Doctor Strange would reveal that Jen had been researching the dark arts before her supposed death. More importantly, Strange knew that Jen had achieved a high level of mastery in the mystical arts as a whole prior to her disappearance, a fact that she purposely hid from the rest of the Marvel Universe at large. Jennifer's return. Time would pass and we'd find out that Jennifer did indeed perish during the brush with Daniel Drum. However, she was able to use her newfound abilities in the dark arts to bring herself back to life, albeit bearing scars on her face. It's then revealed that Jen hid out in the Nexus of all realities during her absence in the Marvel Universe. In fact, we'd find out that Jen's stay in this realm eventually turned her into its new guardian. And although the rest of the world thought that Jennifer was dead, there was a single person in all of the Marvel Universe who knew about her true status: Maria Hill, who had struck a friendship with her back when she was advising on Reptile and White Tiger. Jennifer's secret would soon come to light when Maria sought help in defeating the evil organization, the Hand. Jennifer would eventually be able to remove her scars, but little did she know that her face and her whole body, in fact, was soon going to be in trouble again when the supervillain Miss Tech sicked her henchman Ethan Slaughter to attack the sorceress. Jen would be injured from the attack but ultimately survive it while S.H.I.E.L.D. dealt with Miss Tech. Sometime later, Jennifer would reunite with Man-Thing to help him get revenge against an evil magic user named Belasco. The sorceress would summon Belasco and Man-Thing would drag him to a place called the Dreadscape. The last time we see Jennifer was when she and Man-Thing teamed up with Wanda Maximoff and the mutant clone Joseph to take out a horde of creatures called the Serpentinians.